It was late. I had been scrolling through forums, aimlessly killing time after a long workday. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just something to distract me. I stumbled upon a thread in the deepest, darkest corners of the internet. One of those parts of the web you don't access unless you know exactly what you're doing. The dark web. It was a small link, barely noticeable at first. I should have walked away, but curiosity grabbed me like an unshakable vice. I've always prided myself on being the type of person who can stomach almost anything. But what I saw when I clicked that link, when I saw what was on the other side, changed me forever. The page was minimalistic, almost childishly simple. A single image flashed across the screen. A blurry, distorted figure, one that looked almost human but wasn't. A link beneath it read, "Do you want to see what others can't?" I had no idea what I was getting into, but I clicked. My screen flickered, and suddenly, I found myself sucked into a world I should have never entered. At first, it was like browsing any normal website. The content was bizarre, strange cryptic messages, half-formed faces, and the occasional video of unsettling, distorted imagery. But that was the surface. Below it, something darker awaited. And that's when it started. At first, I thought it was just the sheer weirdness of the whole thing that was giving me chills. The way the page updated itself, shifting images and text as if it were alive. But there was something off. Something that gnawed at me like a quiet whisper in the back of my mind. I kept scrolling, my curiosity pushing me forward, until I reached a new page. It was empty, save for a countdown timer ticking down, seemingly endless. Below it, a message appeared. "Are you ready to see the truth?" My heart skipped a beat. I should have closed the window. I should have turned off the computer. But for some reason, I felt paralyzed. Something inside me urged me to keep going, to dive deeper. I clicked. The page blinked out of existence, replaced by an entirely different site. It was dark, too dark, and there were strange sounds, low, guttural noises, like whispers from deep within a cave. And then, I saw it. A live feed. It was a grainy, shaky video, clearly filmed by someone hiding behind a camera. At first, the camera panned over an old, decrepit room, a basement maybe. There were cages, locked doors, and what looked like strange symbols written in blood on the walls. But the worst part was the figures in the background. Shadows that didn't belong. A voice, distorted and robotic, suddenly echoed through my speakers. "Welcome. What you're about to witness is not for the faint of heart." The timer was almost up. I was frozen, unable to look away, even though every instinct in me screamed to run. The feed zoomed in, and there, in the corner of the room, a figure moved. It was a person, or at least it looked like one. Their body was twisted, bent in ways that weren't possible for any human being. The face, I can't even describe it. The distortion made it seem like it was trying to scream, but it was trapped inside its own skin. I thought I could hear the figure breathing through the screen, the noise growing louder, more frantic. Then the screen flickered again, and I swear I saw it. It looked directly at me. The screen flickered one more time, and suddenly, it felt like the figure on the video was right there, in the room with me. Its distorted face twisted in what could only be described as a grotesque mockery of a smile. The camera zoomed out to reveal the full horror. Cages, broken furniture, and more shadowy figures lurking in the corners of the room. But the worst part was the camera. Someone or something was controlling it. Someone was watching me. I froze, my hands sweating as I gripped the mouse. I tried to close the tab. I tried to shut down my laptop, but nothing worked. The cursor wouldn't move. The only thing I could hear now was my own heartbeat, racing in my chest. And then I heard a sound, a soft tap against the glass of my window. I jerked my head toward the sound, but saw nothing. My window was locked, the blinds drawn. I tried to shake it off as nerves, but my gut told me otherwise. Something was out there. The video feed on my screen flickered again, and this time, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A blurry image, something moving fast in the shadows. The figure was gone, but the atmosphere shifted. It was like I wasn't the only one in the room anymore. I looked back at the screen. The The distorted face from the video wasn't there anymore, but the message that replaced it sent a chill down my spine. Your curiosity has cost you. You're already part of the show. I shook my head, my mind racing. This couldn't be real, but something deep down inside me was telling me otherwise. The room felt colder, and I could swear I heard the faint sound of breathing, closer than before. Suddenly, the screen went black. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of my ragged breathing. I frantically clicked the mouse, trying to get the video back up, but the screen remained dark. Then came another tap, louder this time. My heart skipped. I turned, slowly, towards the window. The sound was unmistakable now, a deliberate knock. I ran to the window, throwing the blinds open with a violent motion. But there was nothing. The street was empty, the neighborhood silent. My breath came in ragged gasps as I backed away from the window. That's when I saw it. The reflection in the glass. A shadow standing right behind me. I spun around, but again, no one was there. My hands trembled as I backed away from the window. The reflection in the glass hadn't just been a trick of light. Something or someone had been standing right behind me. But when I spun around, the room was empty. The fear was suffocating, crawling under my skin, gnawing at my sanity. I slammed the blinds shut, locking the window as quickly as I could. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that something had crossed into my space from that cursed video. The sounds from the screen, the whispers, the breathing, seemed to echo in the silence of my apartment now. I sat down at my desk, staring at my laptop. The screen was still black, the video feed gone. I thought I was safe. I thought it was over. But then I received a message. An email from an address I didn't recognize. We're watching. My blood ran cold. I clicked the email open, my hands shaking. The text was brief, but the image attached was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. It was a photo, a grainy, black and white shot of my front door, taken from a distance just a few moments ago. I could tell because my neighbor's car was parked outside, just as it had been. But that wasn't what made me freeze. What made my heart stop was the shadow. The same distorted figure from the video, standing just outside the frame, hidden in the darkness. It was watching me, waiting. I stumbled back from the desk, my vision blurring with panic. I tried to close the email, but the screen flickered again. Do you want to see more? Couldn't breathe. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't want to see more, but I couldn't stop myself from clicking the link that appeared beneath the message. I knew it was a mistake. I knew it, but the curiosity still consumed me. The link led to another video feed. This time, the camera was stationary, looking at a dimly lit hallway. There was a muffled sound, footsteps, slow and deliberate, growing louder. The camera zoomed in, focusing on the door at the end of the hall. I knew it. I knew what was going to happen. The door creaked open. I could hear the breathing again, heavier this time, as if someone was standing just outside the frame. My fingers hovered over the laptop's power button, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it off. Couldn't look away. Then the door swung open fully. The figure was standing there, tall and unnaturally still. I saw the face. The same twisted, horrifying grin stretched across its features. The one from the video. It was real. The door closed and the feed went black. I didn't need to look at the timestamp to know it was the last moment I would ever be alone. Something had crossed over, and it was here. The screen remained black for what felt like an eternity. My heart pounded in my chest, and the sweat on my palms made it difficult to grip the edge of the laptop. The silence around me was deafening, but it was the kind of silence that felt wrong, like the calm before something terrible. I sat there, frozen, staring at the lifeless screen, my mind racing. What was that thing? What did it want with me? I had already made the mistake of engaging with something I had no business even hearing about, let alone seeing. But deep down, I knew it was more than just an online game, more than some sick joke on the dark web. This was real. I jumped when I heard a soft sound from the kitchen, a creak of the floorboards, followed by something that almost sounded like whispering. Couldn't be. My heart nearly exploded in my chest. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't ignore the gut-wrenching feeling that crawled up my spine. Slowly, I turned around, my eyes darting from one corner of the room to the other. I waited. The apartment felt too still, like the entire space was holding its breath. Then the whispering came again, closer this time. I snapped my head toward the kitchen, but I couldn't see anything. The door was shut, the lights off. My breath caught in my throat, but I forced myself to stand and take a step forward. I grabbed the handle of the kitchen door, trembling, and yanked it open. The space was empty. Nothing was out of place. I let out a shaky breath, half relieved. But then something caught my eye. On the kitchen counter, there was a knife. A butcher knife. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I backed away, my heart racing. But something made me look at the reflection in the window over the sink. I saw it. The figure, the thing, was standing in the reflection right behind me. I spun around, but once again, there was nothing there, except for the faint smell. A sickly, rancid odor that I couldn't place. It was almost like something decaying. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the silence. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. The message was short, the same as the last one. We're already inside. I glanced toward the door, toward the hallway leading to my bedroom, but I couldn't move. My legs were rooted to the spot, my entire body frozen with dread. The door to my bedroom was open, the dark hallway beyond it a void of shadows. And then, through the dim light, I saw something else. Something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't the figure. It wasn't the reflection. It wasn't even the horrible, twisted face that haunted my dreams. No, it was the footprints. Small, damp, and unmistakably human. But they weren't there before. The footsteps led down the hall into my bedroom. I had to move. I had to act. But my body refused to obey. The damp footprints slowly inched across the hallway, each one leaving a mark on the hardwood floor. I was paralyzed. I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing, what was happening. The footprints were real, but how? How could they be real? I glanced back at the kitchen, the knife still sitting on the counter, its blade glinting faintly in the dim light. But I couldn't take my eyes off those prints. They were moving. A low, guttural sound rose from the hallway. It was like a growl, but not quite. More like something trying to speak, but unable to. And then, as if in response to my fear, the temperature in the room dropped. A coldness wrapped around me, like the air itself was trying to crush me. I stepped back toward the door, my breath shallow, the hairs on my neck standing up. The footsteps continued, dragging themselves slowly, agonizingly closer to my bedroom door. That was when I heard it. A voice, low and distorted, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. You should have stopped. Now you can never leave. My heart raced. I turned to flee, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. I spun around, eyes wide, my pulse racing. The house felt like it was closing in on me. There was nowhere to run, no escape. The whispering intensified, becoming louder, almost as though it was in my head now. It was everywhere, inside the walls, inside my thoughts. The same voice over and over again. We're already inside. I was trapped. I knew it now. There was no getting out of this. A shadow flickered in the hallway, moving quickly. I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I saw it again. Darker this time, blocking the doorway to my bedroom. It was huge. Something had changed. The figure was no longer just watching from the shadows. It was in the hallway now, standing at the threshold. I backed away, instinctively reaching for my phone, but it buzzed in my hand before I could even unlock it. The screen lit up with a new message, the same eerie sender. It's time to meet. And then, from the darkness, I saw the thing step forward. The figure from the video, the thing that had been haunting me from the very moment I clicked that link. But this time, it was no longer just a distorted face. It was real. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its hands dragging along the floor like claws, and its eyes, those eyes, they weren't human. They were hollow, black voids that seemed to suck in the very light around them. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The thing tilted its head, studying me with that same twisted grin. It opened its mouth, and I saw rows of sharp teeth. Too many teeth. Suddenly, it lunged at me. I screamed, but it was too late. It all happened so fast. One moment, I was paralyzed, staring into the gaping mouth of the creature. And the next, I was stumbling backward, my body screaming to run, but my legs betraying me. The thing lunged, its jagged teeth snapping mere inches from my throat. I felt a cold, clammy hand brush against my arm, and the chill that shot through me was worse than anything I could have imagined. It wasn't just cold. It was the kind of cold that seeped into your very bones, a feeling of pure, suffocating dread. In a panic, I reached out for anything to defend myself. My hand brushed against the knife on the counter, and without thinking, I grabbed it. As the figure moved closer, I swung the blade with all my strength. Connected. For a moment, I thought it had worked. The thing screeched in pain, a sound so inhuman it sent a wave of terror through my entire body. But then it just vanished. The room went silent again, and the oppressive cold lifted. I stood there, trembling, the knife still gripped in my shaking hand, unsure of what had just happened. I didn't have time to think. The screen on my laptop was flashing again, as if mocking me, showing the same dark figure from the video, smiling. You can't escape. I didn't waste another second. I turned, bolted toward the door, and ran out of my apartment without even thinking to lock it behind me. My feet barely touched the ground as I ran, the sounds of my own frantic footsteps echoing in my head. The city felt too quiet, too empty. It was like the streets themselves were holding their breath. I didn't stop until I reached my friend Luke's place, barely able to catch my breath. I slammed the door behind me and sank to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Luke tried to calm me down, but I couldn't explain it. I couldn't make him understand. Not the way I needed him to. The worst part? I kept hearing the whispers in my head. We're inside. It's been days now, and I'm still here, still with him. But every night, the whispers get louder. The feeling that I'm being watched never fades. And worst of all, I know what it means now. The thing isn't done with me. It's waiting. And this time, there will be no escape.